Right, Nana. Hello, friends. So, welcome back. Decision making revision, we are already done with it. Now, let's go with transfer pricing. Okay, we're gonna look into some concepts. Fatafat. We'll just brush it up, and after that, we'll do some problems as well. Okay. So, because it's a super rapid revision, so we're gonna do things at a very good space. So, this is purely for rapid revision. Okay. So, keep that in mind before we proceed with the session. Okay. Chalo. Now, coming on to transfer pricing. First of all, let's look into the history of it. Earlier, there used to be a centralized way of doing business, which means everything is basically decided by head office. Therefore, branches, departments, divisions, these guys, they just need to follow the orders, whatever the head office says. So, because of this, what used to happen was there was no motivation for the managers because most of the managers were inefficient. Why? Because they just need to follow the orders and they can't take their own independent decisions. So they don't get anything extra, whether they do the work or they don't do the work. Anyway, in both the cases, they'll be getting the same salary. In that case, so whether you work efficiently or inefficiently, if you're going to get the same money, same pay, same salary, where will be motivation for you, obviously, right? Of course, there will be few people because of ethical concerns, they'll do it irrespective of the salary that you pay. But majority of the people aren't like that, so they don't have motivation. And this was hurting the profits of the company. Okay. And for this problem, the solution was decentralization, where head office says that, see, so okay, hereafter, I'm not going to involve in your day-to-day activities, which means the technical word for that is I'm going to give you divisional autonomy. Divisional autonomy means giving them independent powers, almost like an individual company. Okay. So where I'm not going to involve in your day-to-day activities, rather, you are given independence to take your own decisions. Are you able to understand? What head office will do is we will just measure your performance based on some parameters that can be profit, that parameter can be sales, that parameter can be cost. Like I'll give you standard cost and your actual cost will be compared with standard cost, and accordingly your performance will be measured. So the parameter can be anything. Are you able to understand? So we'll give you one parameter, whether it is profit or sales in this example which I've told you. Who will give that? Head office. And accordingly, if the performance is good, then bonus or incentives are given. This bonus or incentives are the motivation for the divisional managers to perform efficiently. Is that clear? This leads to a concept called transfer pricing. Now you can ask me, how can this lead to a concept called transfer pricing? Because the logic is very simple. If you have a supply division over here, supply division is not going to sell anything to the external market. It just buys from the supplier and transfers that to the receiving division. In that case, if you want to measure supply division performance based on profit, now the question is, where is the question of profit for supply division? Because receiving division sells to the outside market. So there will be sales for receiving division. There will be cost for receiving division. So you'll be able to calculate profit. But for supply division, where is the question of calculating profit? Because there is no sales as such. It is just transferring its output to the receiving division, which is within the company. Therefore, now what you say, with the help of transfer pricing, which is nothing but kind of a selling price for supplying division, you're gonna transfer your output to the receiving division, not at cost, but at a selling price, which is nothing but TP. Now, because of the concept of TP, supplying division will get something called sales, and it will have its own cost, and you'll be able to calculate profit, which means you'll be able to measure the performance and everything holds good. Are you able to understand? So that's the whole concept. So there will be two divisions, supplying and receiving. Supplying division will sell its output to receiving division at a price called transfer price. This transfer price is revenue for the supplying division, and the same transfer price is cost for receiving division. You got the point? So the price at which intermediate product of supplying division will be sold to receiving or purchasing division is called transfer price. This division can be called as receiving, or it can also be called as purchasing division. You got the point? So that's the thing. So let's move on to the next one. Examples of interdivisional transfers. Normally we feel that when this so-called interdivisional transfer is happening between supplying division and receiving division, we always feel that only goods will be transferred internally. But you need to understand that it is not just goods. Okay, it is not just goods. It can be what, Nana? Services as well. Apart from services, it can be intangibles, which can be like patent, know-how, royalty. It can be interdivisional loans as well. But when it comes to our syllabus, we have only goods and services. We don't have intangibles as well as interdivisional loans. But you guys need to have an idea. Okay, these are all the possibilities of interdivisional transfer. So just keep that in mind. That should be fine. Right. After that, what else we have got? Utility of transfer pricing. Okay, utility of transfer pricing. So what do you mean by that, sir? Ultimately, what are the uses of transfer pricing? That's what we're gonna see. Now, the first utility of transfer pricing is performance evaluation. Of course, because of TP only, you're going to have something called selling price for supplying division. Because of that, it's gonna be possible to calculate profit for supplying division, and therefore you're able to evaluate the performance. So performance evaluation is obviously the first and most utility of transfer pricing, right? That's the main use of transfer pricing. Apart from that, because you're gonna pay bonus to your employees, they're gonna be engaged more because the compensation has got increased. Therefore, employee engagement will be better. Resource allocation also will be better because now there will be more cooperation between the supplying division and the receiving division. As a result, optimum allocation of resources will happen, which means they will use the resources in the best possible way with minimum wastage. And apart from that, of course, you've got taxation and profit remittance are also utilities of transfer pricing. What do you mean by that? See, very simple. Yeah, here. Let's say in US you have a head office. In UK you have one subsidiary. In India you have another subsidiary. In UK the tax rate is 40%. In India the tax rate is 30%. Let's say the UK subsidiary is supplying division and Indian subsidiary is purchasing division. Now, in the interest of the group as a whole, you would like your transfer price to be high or low? Well, the answer is, as a group, you want to pay less taxes. So if your UK subsidiary earns more, you have to pay 40% out of it. Whereas Indian subsidiary, if it earns profit, you'll pay only 30%. So from the group point of view, you would like to have Indian subsidiary earn more because eventually you will pay only 30%. Indian subsidiary is a purchasing division, which means purchasing division buys the intermediate product. So which means the buying cost has to be less in order to have more profit at Indian subsidiary. That buying cost has to be less means the TP has to be less. Therefore, eventually the TP should be low. So here what we are doing, we are utilizing transfer pricing for taxation issues as well. So that's why it is called one of the utility of transfer pricing. So basically what happens? As a group, you want your tax payment to be less. Tax rate in India is less. Therefore, Indian subsidiary should earn more profit. Because Indian subsidiary is a purchasing division, purchasing division always tries to buy the intermediate product. So the intermediate product price has to be less, which means TP has to be less. Therefore, TP has to be low, right? The last utility of transfer pricing is profit remittance. So what do you mean by profit remittance? You can call it as profit remittance or profit repatriation. Means, say for example, let's say you have KFC. We've got a lot of branches of KFC in India, right? All the profit that you're gonna earn, they want to send it back to their mother country, that is US in this case, right? So sending your profit back to your mother country is nothing but we call it as profit repatriation. Now, so how transfer pricing will help you when it comes to profit repatriation? Let's try to understand that. Now, let's say you've got US where the head office of KFC is there, and you've got two main branches of KFC. Let's say one is China, the other one is India. Whatever the profits that KFC earns from China, it's very easy, say for example, for them to transfer it back to US. Now don't find logics over here. I'm just trying to give you an example, okay? Whereas if at all the KFC earns a lot of profit in India, then it's very strict. I mean, the rules related to profit repatriation are very strict in India, so that it becomes relatively difficult for the KFC management to repatriate the profit from India to US. So they know that profit repatriation from China to US is easier when compared to profit repatriation of India to US. Therefore, they want the Chinese subsidiary to earn more. And let's presume that Chinese subsidiary is supplying division and Indian subsidiary is purchasing division. They want Chinese subsidiary to earn more profit because so that they can repatriate the profit easily to US, which means Chinese subsidiary is a supplying division. Therefore, they want TP to be high so that the revenue for supplying division, that is Chinese subsidiary division, will be high, and therefore they will earn more profit, and therefore from China they will easily repatriate the profit to US. Are you able to understand? So in this case, TP needs to be high or low? TP has to be high so that the revenue for Chinese subsidiary will be high, because TP is revenue for the supplying division and the profit of Chinese subsidiary will be high, and therefore once they have earned very good amount of profit, because the repatriation rules are not strict, easily from Chinese subsidiary it will be transferred to what? US, that is the mother country. Got it? So those are all the concepts of utility of transfer pricing. So that we are done with it. Now let's move on. Now, next one, what we're going to see is transfer pricing methods. There are basically three transfer pricing methods over here. One is market based, cost based, the other one is negotiation based. Under cost based, again, you have got marginal cost based, standard cost based, full cost, as well as cost plus markup. Okay, right. First, let's look into market based transfer price, which means if your transfer price is equal to the market price, what will happen? What are the pluses? What are the minuses? Okay. The plus point is, first of all, if your TP is equal to market price, then it is unbiased. Why? There's no biasedness. Why? Because this transfer price is determined by the market forces of demand and supply. Therefore, there is no question of biasedness. So you'll not be favoring somebody. You'll not be, unfair to somebody. Are you able to understand? So it will be equal. It will be fair to everybody because it is determined by market forces. This is the first advantage, right? If you fix your TP based on market price. Second, there is no ambiguity, no confusion because market price is visible to everybody. So there is no confusion whatsoever if you fix your TP based on market price, right? Third, market price is competitive. So performance of individual divisional managers can be improved. How? Well, the logic is very simple. Suppose you have got supply and division and you have got receiving division. Supply and division has fixed TP of 15 rupees for its intermediate product, which receiving division is buying right now. Whereas there is an external vendor who tries to sell the same product that supply division transfers to receiving division at a price of 12 itself. Then what will happen? Receiving division will stop buying from supply division and it will start buying from the external vendor at 12 rupees. Now, supply division cannot transfer at 15 rupees to receiving division. Neither it can sell outside as well because in outside the market price is 12. So nobody will buy from supply division at 15. So in that case, what is the only choice that is left for supply division? It has to increase its efficiency. Are you able to understand? Now supply division is made competitive. Now supply division has to compete with the external vendor and it has to eventually, presuming that the quality of the product is same, eventually transfer to R at a price of 12 only because there is no other way. So which means if you fix your TP based on market price, then performance of the individual division managers can be improved in case they are inefficient. In our example, you have supply division and receiving division. Because supply division is transferring at a price of 15, because in the market it is available at 12, therefore supply division is inefficient. Therefore, their performance will increase if you fix TP based on market price, which is 12. If you fix your TP based on market price, which is 12. In that case, eventually what will happen? Supply division has to transfer at 12 itself, but it wants 15, which means it will not earn sufficient profit. Therefore, ultimately it will concentrate on its cost. It will try to reduce its cost, which means it becomes efficient. That's the logic. Anyways, now coming on to negative points. First of all, we said here in the positive point that market price is, if you fix your TP based on market price, it is completely unbiased. But that need not be the case. Sometimes it can be completely biased, even market price. How? When there is predatory pricing, where you try to price your product less than your total cost with an intention to kill your competition. That is predatory pricing. You try to price your total, you try to price your product less than the total cost with an intention to kill your competition. In that case, if you take that particular market price as a TP, it will be biased. Price discrimination. Sometimes for soldiers, you will try to sell it at a different price. For senior citizens, you will try to sell it at a different price. For women, sometimes you try to sell it at different price. You cannot consider those market prices because they are discriminated, right? That will not give you fair TP. You got the point? So you cannot fix your TP based on such kind of discriminated market price. Are you able to get me? Next, sometimes your market price can fluctuate widely and frequently. Morning 20, evening 22 rupees, next day 25, something like this. Now, which market price will you take? Now, that's again a confusion. So that can be a negative point sometimes. If your market price keeps on fluctuating widely and frequently, in that case, you'll be pretty much confused to take which TP, to fix which TP as your market price. Sorry, to fix which market price as your TP. Got the point? And finally, for some intermediate products, market price may not be available at all. You are manufacturing an intermediate product which is unique in the entire country itself, and there is no market for that intermediate product, but that intermediate product can be converted into a final product by the receiving division, and for that there is a market. Now for the intermediate product which is very unique, which is manufactured by only your company, if it is unique, there is a question of finding a market price for that. So if there is no market price, how can you fix your TP? If the TP is based on market price, it doesn't work. So all these are negative points and all these are positive points if you fix your TP based on market price. Got the point? I hope this is clear. Right. Next, very important thing. Now many students are getting confused with respect to this particular concept because maximum and minimum TP, almost like 50 to 60% of the problems in your TP chapter is based on this only. And for your kind information, if you can learn this, you can fix maximum and minimum TP for any problem. Sir, is it that simple? Just half a page? Not even half a page, 1/4 of the page? Yes, it is that simple. Once I finish it off, you'll understand. How to fix minimum and maximum TP in any situation. This attempt we are actually expecting minimum and maximum TP to come in the examination because last time the question was asked based on international transfer pricing. So we are expecting that to come. Anyways, well, the answer is very simple. If you want to fix your minimum TP, you should always think from supply and division's point of view. Every sentence that I've written here is very important. You will not find these things in books. Therefore, try to understand this carefully. If you want to fix your minimum TP, you should always think from supply and division's point of view. Why? Because supply and division is the one who has spent the money to manufacture that particular product. Therefore, you need to ensure that supply and division gets more than what it has spent. Suppose it has spent 10, your TP should be minimum more than 10. Suppose it has spent 20, your TP should be minimum more than 20. Are you able to understand? So therefore, minimum TP is nothing but whatever the money that supply and division has spent. Got the point? Maximum TP means you need to think from receiving division's point of view. Why? Because purchasing division or receiving division is the one who is going to buy. So we must ensure that the receiving division has got sufficient money to buy. For example, receiving division has got only 100 rupees in its pockets. You cannot fix TP as 120. Then it cannot buy because it does not have the capability to buy. Sometimes, let's say receiving division has got 120 rupees in its pockets and you have fixed TP as 120. But outside from an external vendor, it is available at 110. Then receiving division will pay maximum 110 only. Why? Because it can be bought at the same price from 110, from the external vendor. In that case, even if you fix TP at 120, it's not gonna work, which means when it comes to maximum TP, it is the money that receiving division possesses or the external buying price, whichever is less will be your maximum TP. How much money that receiving division has got? Let's say it is 140 or outside from vendor it is available at 120. In that case, 120 will be your maximum TP. Are you able to understand? Suppose the money that receiving division possesses is 160 and outside vendor it is available at 180. Now supply division cannot say I can fix maximum TP as 180 because it can come out with a logic saying that outside it is available at 180 so that I'm also keeping TP as 180. Then receiving division will say yes, outside it is available at 180, I can accept that, but I have got only 160 with me right now. Even if I want to, I don't have money. I have only 160 with me. What can I do? Maximum I can pay 160. Then maximum TP will be 160 only. Therefore, the money that receiving division possesses or the external buying price, whichever is less, is nothing but your maximum TP. Okay, so very simple. That's it. We are done with everything. If you can understand this logic clearly, you can solve any problem in this entire chapter. So always remember, this is very important. Every single sentence is important. You got to think like that only. In any problem, if you have been asked to fix minimum TP or maximum TP, what do you have to think? Okay, fine. Minimum TP means we should think from supply and division's point of view. Whatever the money that supply and division has spent, our TP should be more than that. There ends the matter. Done. That's it. Now coming on to maximum TP, okay, I need to think from receiving division's point of view. How much is the money that receiving division has got? Below that, I need to fix TP. Only then he will buy. Or how much is the money that receiving division has got or external buying price, whichever is less. Got it? So finally, this is the essence of the transfer pricing concept. Minimum TP is nothing but cost that has been spent by the supply division. Maximum TP is nothing but money that receiving division possesses or external buying price, whichever is less. You got the point? Yeah. So the concept remains the same only. I'm just trying to improvise it a bit here. Minimum TP is equal to total relevant cost of the supply division. I already told you minimum TP is nothing but cost spent by the supply division. That cost can be relevant cost. Relevant cost means what? Sometimes it can be variable cost plus opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is also cost now. Opportunity cost is also cost. So ultimately, what is the concept I've told you? Minimum TP is nothing but total cost for the supply division. Now, total cost for the supply division can be either variable cost or marginal cost or variable cost plus opportunity cost. Plus, it can be fixed cost also. Marginal cost means that is the logic over here. When fixed cost is also changing, we'll call it as marginal cost. Are you able to understand? When fixed cost is not changing, only variable cost is changing, then also we can call it as marginal cost, but then marginal cost will be nothing but variable cost. Are you able to understand? Which means the logic that you have to understand here is any cost that changes will come under this. Normally variable cost will be changing. If fixed cost also changes, that also you have to add here, plus opportunity cost if there is any opportunity cost. I hope you guys know the concept of opportunity cost. The benefit that you're gonna foregone from a lost opportunity is nothing but opportunity cost. So minimum TP is nothing but total relevant cost of the supply division, which usually is either variable cost or variable cost plus opportunity cost. Are you able to understand? Pretty simple. Maximum TP, I hope I've explained you the concept already. NMR. NMR is nothing but the money that receiving division possesses. Net marginal revenue is nothing but the money that receiving division possesses. Now you can ask me, how is that, sir? Very simple, Nana. Suppose receiving division sells its product at 120 rupees in the outside market. It spends its own cost, that is the own cost of the receiving division is nothing but we call it as further processing cost as 80. Then how much is the money that receiving division possesses? 120 minus 80, 40. 40 is the money that it has got to buy from the supplying division. This 40 is nothing but NMR. Are you able to understand? Because the selling price of 120 is called as revenue, that is R. This is called as cost. Revenue minus cost is nothing but net revenue. Are you able to understand? Revenue minus cost is nothing but net revenue. You got the point? And incremental net revenue is nothing but net marginal revenue. Marginal revenue means incremental, additional. So that's why it is called as NMR. Simply what you have to understand, NMR is nothing but money that receiving division possesses. There ends the matter, right? Or external buying price, whichever is less. I hope I have explained you the concept already. So this is it, guys. If you can remember this, all the problems, you can fix your minimum TP as well as maximum TP. There ends the matter. Chalo. Now let's move on to the next one. Different types of centers. Okay. Normally, I think this will be covered in a different chapter, but this is the right time to cover this particular concept. What are the different types of centers? We have cost center, profit center, revenue center, and investment center. What do you mean by this, sir? If you have a division, a supplying division as well as a receiving division, how can you treat that particular division? For example, of course, we are going for decentralization, divisional autonomy only. There are different types of divisional autonomy. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm going to give powers to the individual departments. Yes, there is no doubt in that. In that, there are different types of powers. Extreme power like investment center, relatively less power like cost center. So what is that? Let's try to understand. If you treat a particular division as cost center, it means that that division has got power with respect to cost. Means it can take decisions with respect to cost and it is responsible to the extent of cost only. How will you measure the performance of such a kind of a division? I'll give it standard cost and I'll see what is the actual cost being incurred, and actual cost will be compared with standard cost, and accordingly variance will be calculated, and accordingly performance will be measured, accordingly bonus will be given. Can you give any examples for those divisions treated as cost center? Yes, the example is purchasing division, or you can also call it as procurement division. Purchasing division or procurement division. Got it? That's the example for cost center. Profit center means you are responsible to the extent of profit, which is nothing but indirectly you're responsible for sales as well as cost, because both of them will influence profit. And you have power with respect to sales as well as cost as well, because both of them will influence profit. Okay. And your performance will be measured based on target profit. Generally, most of the production departments will be profit centers. Most of the production departments will be profit centers. And finally, revenue center, same logic. Your power will be restricted to the extent of sales or revenue, and you're responsible to the extent of sales or revenue as well. And your performance will be measured based on sales targets. Like for example, I'll give you a target of 1 lakh sales per quarter or 1 lakh sales per month or whatever it is. If you achieve that, you'll get bonus. If you don't achieve that, you don't get bonus. As simple as that. Okay. Examples are sales department, marketing department. Generally, they will be treated as a revenue center, and their targets will be given based on sales turnover only. Okay. And finally, you have something called investment center, which is an extreme form of decentralization. Means maximum power will be given. Are you able to understand? You have power with respect to profit, some capital budgeting decisions as well, and your performance will be measured based on ROI. Now, the biggest question is when a particular division will be treated as an investment center. Well, the logic is very simple. Let's say in US, there is a holding company and they have a subsidiary in Hyderabad in India. they do not know about the realities of the substrate or the local challenges, the kind of market, the kind of people here in Hyderabad to do their business. Therefore, what the holding company in US does is that it feels that we need to give extreme power to the head or the manager or divisional head of the substrate such that they'll be able to do business well in Hyderabad, because we are totally have no idea with respect to what the local challenges in Hyderabad are. In that case, I will treat this particular substrate as an investment center where I'll give him power to take some capital budgeting decisions as well. And I'll measure his performance based on return on investment. So this is a kind of typical example where a particular division or a substrate or a branch can be treated as an investment center. You got the point? So that's the concept, guys. This is very important. How the case studies can come is that, say for example, in a question, he can give you a particular department and he can say that this particular department is treated as a profit center and now it has been decided to convert that into cost center. These are all the reasons. Give your opinion. Like that, he can ask you a question and then you have to give your opinion whether the decision to convert that particular division from profit to cost center is justified or not with your reasons. Are you able to understand? Like this, he can ask you interpretation based kind of questions. That's why you need to know the logic. Are you able to understand? I hope this is clear. Yes. Right. Fantastic. Now let's look into the concept of relevant cost. Already I have discussed this relevant cost concept as part and parcel of decision making revision as well. But one more time we'll see. So based on decision making, we can classify cost into two: relevant, irrelevant. Relevant means you consider it while taking decision. Irrelevant means you ignore it while taking decision. For example, variable cost is always relevant because it changes. Explicit cost means where there will be real cash payment, like salary, electricity. That will be what? Relevant cost. Are you able to understand? Then what else? Yeah, let's get to opportunity cost. You know what is opportunity cost, right? Benefit foregone from a lost opportunity. That is relevant cost or irrelevant cost? Relevant cost. Okay. Then what else? Yeah, sunk cost. Where is it? Yeah, here it is. Sunk cost will be relevant cost or irrelevant cost? Irrelevant cost. I hope you guys know what is sunk cost. Historical cost, a cost which has already been incurred, is sunk cost, correct? So we are aware of that as well. Reminding you guys can just read these examples yourself. Once you have got my Power Notes hard copy, you can just read this examples yourself. Are you able to understand? Chalo. So sunk cost is nothing but historical cost or cost already incurred. Okay, now let's move on to the next concept, that is key factor or limiting factor or critical factor. I told you that when decision making revision was being done, I told you that I'll cover this as part and parcel of transfer pricing, and now we are covering it over here. So what is this key factor or limiting factor or critical factor? Okay, let's try to understand this first. Anything that has the ability to limit your production, we call it as key factor or limiting factor or critical factor. In other words, to put it very simple, scarce resources, that's it. Raw material availability is limited, machine's availability is limited, labor's availability is limited, is nothing but critical factor or limiting factor, which is nothing but we can also call that as bottleneck. Which is nothing but we can also call it as bottleneck. There is no doubt in that. Are you able to understand? How to apply this particular concept? Well, very simple. Let's take an example over here. A, B, C. Selling price is given, variable cost is given. If you look at the contribution per unit, and if you take your decision based on contribution per unit, you will prefer A first, followed by B, and followed by C. Correct? But let's presume that raw material is a limiting factor, and look at the situation over here. A consumes 2 kg of raw material, B consumes 1 kg of raw material, and C consumes 0.5 kg of raw material. In this case, let us see what happens. Now let's find out contribution per unit of raw material. 40 by 2, 30 by 1, 20 by 0.5, and you can see contribution per raw material is 20, 30 and 40, and the ranking has exactly become opposite. C has got the first rank, A has got the last rank. Why? Because even though A is giving you contribution of 40, it is consuming 2 kgs, therefore per kg it is giving only 20. Even though C is giving you a contribution of 20, it is consuming only 0.5 kgs, which means for 2 kgs equivalent over here, it will earn how much? 4 times that of A, correct? Almost 80. That's why here contribution per raw material when compared to A, it is double over here. Are you able to understand? Can you see that? Yeah. So for 1 kg, it will be 40. For 2 kgs, you can say it will be 80. Are you able to understand? So double to that of what A earns. So therefore C has got the first rank. So what you guys need to understand here from this example is that whenever you have a limiting factor, in this case it is raw material, you should never ever take decision based on contribution per unit. Rather, you should take decision based on contribution per limiting factor. In this case, it is contribution per raw material. It can be contribution per laborer, it can be contribution per machinery. So that is the summary what I've given. If there is no limiting factor, no scarce resources, raw material, laborers, machineries, everything availability is very good, then you take decision based on contribution per unit. That will give you maximum profit, because most of the times question will ask you, what should I do to earn maximum profit? That's what question will ask you. If there is limiting factor, then take decision based on contribution per limiting factor. This will give you maximum profit. Are you able to understand? If there is no limiting factor, take decision based on contribution per unit. That will give you maximum profit. If there is limiting factor, take decision based on contribution per limiting factor. That will give you maximum profit. That is the summary. That's it. If you remember these two sentences, it's done and dusted. Are you able to understand? Well done on all of you. Yes? Right, Nana? So I hope this is clear, right? Okay, only just these two sentences you got to remember. That's more than enough. Right, buddies? So we'll wind up the session over here. In the next session, hardly there are 1 or 2 concepts that is left over. We'll cover that and then we'll go for problems. Fatafat, within 1 hour 15 minutes, we'll finish off as many problems as possible for revision from this transfer pricing chapter. You got it? And then we'll go for next chapter revision. Right, guys? Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel, guys. Revision classes are going to get uploaded. You better subscribe to it. And if you can share the videos and help the other students as well, that would be great from my side. Right, guys? Thank you so much. Bye-bye.